Well, good morning. I'm Brent Adams here with your Rural Strong Morning Ag Report for this Thursday, February 1st. Leading off the headlines this morning, a new USDA cattle report shows the beef cattle herd will continue to shrink. More from USDA Radio's Gary Crawford.
Is the beef cattle industry ready to reverse its current contraction phase of the cattle cycle?
This report is basically pointing to the fact that it is not.
Agriculture Department livestock analyst Shale Shagam talking about Wednesday's USDA cattle inventory report showing declines from January 1st a year ago in almost every phase of the cattle industry, including the inventory of all cattle and calves.
We're beginning the year about 2% below a year ago, with producers retaining fewer heifers for beef cow replacement. We're also looking at tighter supplies of cattle, which are going to be available for placement on feed during 2024. The general takeaway from this report would be that the contraction is continuing and currently looks like it will be continuing through 2024.
Possibly into 2025, leading to smaller cattle numbers, higher cattle prices. Gary Crawford reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
Also out, the latest USDA agricultural prices report, which shows that commodity prices in December were mostly below year-earlier prices. Here again is Gary Crawford.
According to the latest USDA Ag Prices report, prices in December took a holiday, with almost every crop and livestock product bringing producers less money than in December of 2022. The USDA's price received index for December ending the year 18% below December a year earlier. A quick look at a few commodities. Corn averaging $4.80 a bushel. That was down $1.78 from December of 22. Wheat, December prices averaging $6.79. That was $2.18 less than the year before. Soybean prices $13.10 a bushel, $1.30 below a year earlier. It was the same basic story for livestock prices, except for beef cattle and broilers, both of those commodities fetching higher prices in December of 23 than in December of 22. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
Well, the National Cattlemen's Beef Association's Executive Committee approved the organization's policy priorities at the 2024 Cattle Industry Convention and NCBA trade show in Orlando. This year's priorities focus on advocating for the reauthorization of the Farm Bill, protecting cattle producers from federal regulatory overreach, and defending the U.S. cattle industry against external attacks. NCBA President-elect Mark Isley says NCBA will continue pushing for passage of a farm bill that includes key animal health and voluntary conservation provisions, as well as hold the line against all federal policies that could damage the livelihoods of U.S. cattle producers. Other priorities include the fight against misguided Endangered Species Act rules and any expansion of bureaucratic red tape under the National Environmental Policy Act. Additionally, NCBA wants to preserve family farms and ranches for future generations by advocating for essential tax relief for cattle producers. To learn more and to find the full list of the 2024 policy priorities, head to ncba.org. Well, U.S. Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack has weighed in on nourishment's role in healthy outcomes as part of a panel during the Department of Health and Human Services Food is Medicine Summit. More on that from USDA Radio's Rod Bain.
Food is medicine, the theme of a Health and Human Services Summit Wednesday. Among the subtopics discussed, the power and importance of nourishment.
At USDA, we're making a concerted effort to be sensitive to a variety of points of view when it comes to food. That's why the nutrition programs that we operate are really focused on trying to create healthier choices, trying to create those young children having that first opportunity to experience fruits and vegetables and healthy foods.
Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack among the panelists covering this subject at the event.
We're also, I think, sensitive to the need for us to adjust our programs so that they are culturally sensitive, that there are different needs and different diets and different food needs as a result.
The Secretary adds the focus of food as medicine also provides an opportunity to shift the focus of ag production from quantity to diversity.
That recognizes that so many small and mid-sized producers need different sources of income and different streams of income in order to survive, in order to thrive.
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
Well, global conflicts have the potential to impact the fertilizer market as U.S. farmers prepare for planting season. Josh Linville, Vice President of Fertilizer at StoneX, explains.
Well, the nitrogen sector had a little bit of a hickey here this weekend in the terms of something that, again, had no direct impact on the nitrogen markets, but it's something that could happen. And that was the attack on a U.S. Jordan base. It ended up with 3 military members dead, dozens injured. And the reason this is important for nitrogen is that it is stemming from the rebels based in Syria, and now we're waiting for the response from the U.S. And we're wondering, is this just another physical attack back on the Houthi rebels and it stays there? Is this a physical attack on them and then sanctions on Iran, and whether that will or will not include sanctions on urea exports from Iran? They're a major exporter when they're able to export. Or is there a more direct conflict in the works because Iran has been back in this group, or at least linked to it?
The response, Linville says, prompts some worry for shipments of fertilizer.
The worry is if all of a sudden we have to start talking about a storyline that considers the inability to transit vessels through the Persian Gulf or the Strait of Hormuz, the world will focus on oil shipments. But from our marketplace, from a nitrogen standpoint, there are millions upon millions of tons of urea exports that come from that body of water, from those countries that surround that body of water. And if all of a sudden Iran starts taking shots at vessels, you start to shut down those exports, the global S&D for urea changes drastically overnight. The market's going to respond to that, and that's probably going to be in a higher stance.
While the probability of that situation is low, Linville says there are a lot of what-ifs in the market right now.
There is, and that situation is one that I would say that's an incredibly low probability, right? Nobody wants a regional war, and it's just one of those situations that might happen. And in terms of what we can do, it's still one of those situations. I think we need to be a little more on top of things going into the spring. What I mean by that, it does not mean you have to buy everything right now or you won't get it, because we've cried wolf on that story so many times. I think we've got a good start on imports. I think we've got a good supply of product to get the thing started. But there's also a lot of risk associated with this. I think it's still now more than ever important to make sure we're having conversations with our retailer, with our supplier. So having earlier and more often conversations with your supplier to say, here's what I'm going to be looking for. Let's continue talking about this. I think helps the value chain be ready for the spring season.
That's Josh Linville of StoneX. A special thank you to Susan Littlefield of KRVN and the Rural Radio Network in Lexington, Nebraska for that audio. Well, you can keep up with the latest from the world of agriculture by subscribing to the Tractors and Troubadours podcast from Rural Strong Media. Each week, I bring you agriculture industry newsmakers, hot-button industry issues, educational features, and the best in traditional country music. The Tractors and Troubadours podcast can be found at ruralstrongmedia.com or wherever you get your podcasts. We also invite you to join us daily on Rural Strong Radio, our 24/7 streaming radio station found at ruralstrongmedia.com or the Live 365 streaming radio app for your mobile device. Each day, we bring you our award-winning agriculture programming, as well as the best in traditional country music, mixed in with a little bluegrass, western swing, southern rock, and inspirational music. Again, the place to find Rural Strong Radio is ruralstrongmedia.com or the Live 365 streaming radio app. We're portable, so take us with you everywhere you go while you're working on the farm or ranch. Let's get through the workday together. Well, I'll be back again tomorrow with another Rural Strong Morning Ag Report here on Steve Shetler Media. Make it a great day, everybody.